Hello everyone, it's Jen, Scrapbena Creations. I'm so excited to be sharing 14 cards with the SCT April 2021 Sampler Kit. So to get started, I'm going to share the coloring for this little 3x4 coloring sheet. There was 2 in my sampler pack, so I'm going to color up the little frogs. I'm going to add some shading to the whites of the eyes. So I'm using C3 as the darkest, blending that out with the C1, and then going over that with the colorless blender. Now I thought the color pushed back a little bit too much on the right eye, so I am just going to go over that a second time. Now if you missed my unboxing, I will link that at the end of this video and below so you can see what comes in what they call the sampler. And this is by Scrapbook and Cards Today, and I talk a little bit about this kit in the unboxing. So for the frog, I'm using the pattern paper as my color guide, and the legs and the top of the face are a really light green color. So for that, I'm using YG03 as my darkest, YG01 as my mid-tone, and then YG21 as the lightest. And this was, I think, the first time I've used these little coloring cards, and I have to say that the alcohol markers do blend really nicely on the cardstock. It's a very smooth cardstock, so the markers just kind of glide over it. Now for the second color of green, I'm going to sort of a mid-tone of green for the underneath of the mouth and then the body. So I'm using YG25 as my darkest, YG03 as the midtone, and then YG01 as the lightest. So this is just going to be one step darker from the first shade of green that I colored with. The legs are actually the darkest part of the frog on the pattern paper. So I'm going to be bringing in a couple more colors here. You can see I'm just adding a little bit of that mid-tone in that lighter portion. So for my darkest shade of green, I'm using YG17, YG25, and YG03. And if you're new to my videos, I always leave the marker caps to the left-hand side when I'm coloring, and the darkest color is always to the top and then going down towards the lightest color, so it's easy to follow along. So you can see how these 3 different shades really come together nicely to give a lot of dimension to our cute little frog. And this is from Photoplay paper. It's their Fern and Willard collection, and it's one of their newest collections. It's one of the things that excited me about the sampler is that you get a little bit of sampling, which is, I guess, why they call it that, from some of the newest collections out there. So super fun. So for the flowers on the frog, I am going to use the same colors that are in the pattern paper, and I'm just going to use 1 marker per color. So for the blue, I'm using B99, R24 for the red, Y13 for the yellow, and then RV10 for the pink. And for the insides of the flowers, I'm coloring them the same as they are in the pattern paper, although I got a little bit of red in that circle from the red flower, so I did use the blue marker for that. Okay, so let's jump into the first card. So I'm using some navy blue cardstock. This just happens to be from my stash. It's some Heffy Doodle cardstock. Now you'll notice I have some circles cut out of that back layer. I'm just going to fill those in with some 80-pound accent opaque white paper. This is my brand of choice. I use the 80 and the 100-pound quite frequently. They are very affordable, and I will have the links to everything that I'm using today down below, including the paper. So I just want to fill in those holes so that there's no kind of dips, or you can see that I've cut out something from that blue cardstock. So I'm just going to use the cute pattern paper here with the frogs on it for my background, and you can see that's where I got the inspiration for my little frog. Now this circle, I cut it out of one of the 3x4 cut aparts, and I'm using Barely Art glue, and I was having a hard time lining things up. The one thing that I don't like about this glue is there's no time to even give you a little bit of wiggle room to get your stuff into place. Otherwise, I love this glue, but you'll see I kind of struggled in today's video. There's a few times that I pull up some things that I didn't quite get centered. So I'm using this polka dot paper strip here to the bottom. I'm going to adhere the circle on top of that. I'm just going to kind of place it once I get the ends trimmed up here on the side of my card. I'm going to place that to the lower bottom left where there's kind of none of those cute little images there, so it frames the other frogs nicely, and I decided to put the stripes on a little bit of a diagonal. I've gone ahead and I've popped up my frog on some foam tape, and then I stamped the hello sentiment from the Gina K stamp that came in the stamp kit, the sampler kit. I just stamped that out onto some white cardstock using my Catherine Pooler Juniper Mist ink. It's a nice navy blue. And then I backed that onto the smallest navy cardstock circle there. And now I'm just adding some white dot details to the legs of the frog using my size 10 gel pen. And I think this just gave her the cutest little finishing touch. So here's a look at the first card complete, and now we can jump into card number 2, which is a slimline card. I loved this kind of patchwork pattern paper, so I cut this down to fit a mini slimline, and I'm using some yellow cardstock for my base. So the cardstock is 3x6, and then I cut the pattern paper just a little bit smaller than that, so 1/4 inch smaller. I'm using one of the cut aparts from the collection. This is the cute little sun, and it says, "Hope the sun shines down on you today." And I'm backing that onto some of that navy cardstock, which I've already gone ahead and adhered some adhesive back fun foam to the back of that, so that little focal panel there is raised up. Then I'm going to be using my Heffy Doodle stitched swirly clouds. I love these clouds, and I think this just adds a little something extra to this card. So it kind of carries the clouds from the little ephemera piece into the rest of the card. So I'm going to have 2 of the larger clouds behind my little focal panel here. I'm just going to take the release paper off of that adhesive foam. And then I'm going to add the smallest little cloud here just underneath the sun on the top. And I love how this card turned out, just adding a little bit of glitter to the cheeks of my sun. So moving on to card number 3, another mini slimline card. I'm using this really sweet ladybug pattern paper, and I am backing that on to some black cardstock. And then I'm going to use the little ephemera banner here that says "Hi Friend," and it has the little ladybug on it. I'm just going to add a strip of this green pattern paper. This is actually a piece left over from the ladybug paper. It's the B side or the back side of it. Again, backing some of that on to some black cardstock, and then I'm just taking some ribbon in my stash. I used a hole punch there to create a hole in my little tag, and then I'm going to lay down that little strip across the kind of like the top 1/3 of my mini slimline card, trim up the sides there to get it nice and even, and then I've decided that I'm going to add some foam tape to the back of my tag here just to give it a little bit of a raised effect and some dimension. Then I'm going to tie a little bow with my ribbon, and I'm going to add the ribbon with some mini glue dots here, just using my craft pick to get that off of the paper. I'm going to add 2 where the bow is, and then I'm going to add a couple of those glue dots at the top there where those ribbons are coming up to the top of the card, just trimming those ever slightly. And here's where I'll just add a couple glue dots here to make sure those stay in place. And that will be my 3rd card from the sampler kit complete. So moving on to cards 4 and 5. So I forgot to hit record on card number 5, so I will show you that. But first we'll put together card number 4. So this is an A2 size card using paper from the Fern and Willard collection. These pattern papers were so sweet and really kind of true to my style. I like that cutesy kind of style. So I found that I gravitated to these pattern papers first. There are 6 other pattern papers from the sampler kit, and they are Paige Evans' The Wonders collection. So you'll see the cards that I made with those a bit later on. So using the piece of pattern paper with the butterflies and the dragonflies and the cute little sun, so I cut that down with a stitched rectangle die, and then I'm using some of that really nice yellow gingham style pattern paper for a strip towards the top. The You Are Beautiful with the butterfly circle was an ephemera piece. I just cut that down with an infinity circle die, so there was no border around it. And then again, I'm bringing those Heffy Doodle swirly cloud dies back here, and I'm going to add 3 to this card, similarly to the mini slimline card that I did. So I did pop up that ephemera piece on some foam tape. The clouds I will just adhere down with my liquid adhesive, just kind of adding 2 towards the top and then the 1 to the bottom towards the sun. And here's card number 5. I used the butterfly from one of the 3x4 cards, the leftover strip of pattern paper, and voila, done. So moving on to card number 6. So this is the first card I used the Paige Evans collection on. And I'm just going to create a really simple design here using the pattern paper. So I have this pink and red striped paper towards the bottom, and then I had a little sliver of that yellow gingham paper left over, so I'm going to use that as a border on the top. I'm going to frame up this gorgeous floral pattern paper on some blue. This is just 12 by 12 paper that I purchased in a paper pad from Michaels. It's a Recollections pastel 12 by 12 paper pad, but the color was perfect for the blue in the pattern paper. And I feel like that just kind of lets it stand out from the background a bit more. I'm using a happy birthday die. This is from Simon Says Stamp. So I cut out the shadow with that same blue paper, and then the happy birthday sentiment with some white cardstock. And I'm going to use some Honeybee Stamps Love Letters gem stickers here in this kind of brighter pink color just to finish off this card. So there is card 6 complete. Now moving on to card number 7, I loved this butterfly pattern paper, so I really wanted it to be the focus of this card. I'm going to back that onto some of the navy blue cardstock again. I just loved the dark blue color in both of the paper collections. Backing that on to some solid purple cardstock. This is from the same Recollections paper pad as the blue paper from the previous card. And then I had this ephemera piece that said, "Yes, you can." And so I'm just going to back that on to the back of this sentiment here. And then I just trimmed that one side on a diagonal, and I'll do the same with my navy blue cardstock. And then I'm just going to adhere this down with some liquid adhesive, and that will be it for this card. A very clean and simple design. But I loved that bold sentiment. I thought it could carry the card by itself, and then that butterfly paper was just absolutely gorgeous. For card number 8, I'm bringing in one of the ephemera pieces. I did cut off the sentiment that was on the bottom of that. I felt like it fit a little bit better for maybe a scrapbook page. So I cut off that sentiment, and then I'm using the Thinking of You sentiment that came in the Gina K exclusive stamp set. I'm going to stamp that with my Catherine Pooler Juniper ink right in between those 2 bottom rows of hearts, and that will be my sentiment for this card. I am going to back that onto some of the navy blue cardstock again. This will just allow it to pop off of that gorgeous kind of brushstroke pattern paper. And then I stamped 2 of the flowers from the stamp set. The pink color is Catherine Pooler, and I forget which color that is. I will link it down below. And then also I will stamp them for a card coming up as well using the Catherine Pooler Limoncello ink. But I stamped these out. I thought I was going to use them on a card by themselves, and I had them intertwined. For this card, I decided though to cut them back apart. I did stamp the stems with the Juniper Mist ink just so I didn't introduce a new color into my color palette, but I'm going to have those kind of coming out of the left-hand side of my focal panel here with the hearts. I did back that on some fun foam again. So I'm just playing with placement here. I sort of wanted it more down towards the bottom right-hand side of the card. So that will complete that card. The next card, card number 9, is another mini slimline. This one is super simple. So I used some of that rainbow striped pattern paper, cut that down to 3 by 6. I'm going to use the Happy Birthday sentiment from the Gina K stamp. Again, stamping that with the Juniper Mist ink. I'm going to stamp that a couple times so it's nice and bold on that pattern paper. And then I'm bringing in one of the cut-aparts from the Fern and Willard collection, just the bouquet of flowers, and I'm going to adhere that with some foam tape to the bottom left-hand side and add some glitter to the bottom of that. Card number 10, I'm using this really pretty Starburst blue pattern paper. Now I did cut out a shadow die for Thinking of You sentiment that I'm going to use in one of the next cards. I decided to use the 3 by 4 cut apart that says Smiles All Around, and then one of these little, they call them lollies, and it had the word lovely on it, but that didn't really fit with the theme of my card, so I just took that off. There was a little bit of glue there on the little circle, so I just wanted to make sure I got that off. And then I cut out this little butterfly from one of the ephemera pieces and decided to place that on top of the little lolly instead of having the word lovely. I cut out the word hello. This is a Heffy Doodle die out of some holographic paper and just added that to the top, and I thought that that just added something to the sentiment. So moving on to card number 11, another very simple card design. I loved this pattern paper. It just kind of reminds me of a starburst or sunburst type pattern with all those gorgeous colors. So I wanted that for the top of the card. And then I'm using some of this brighter pink for the bottom. Where those two pattern papers meet, I'm just using a strip of this leftover piece, which is a blue, I don't even know what you would call that type of pattern paper, but it's got lots of lines through it. And then here's where I used the limoncello ink, or limoncello, I have no idea how to say that, and stamped that out. So you can see with the flowers here, you can really get a different look depending on what color of ink you use, and I just wanted to place that behind the Miss You sentiment. Again, I cut that out of some holographic paper, and this is a Heffy Doodle die, and then the shadow just with some white cardstock. So the next card is a very similar design. This one though is where I'm going to use the Thinking of You shadow that I cut out of that previous piece of pattern paper. So I'm going to have the pretty purple heart paper to the top, and then using the leftover of that circle pattern paper. I did cut a small strip of the holographic paper here just to add in between those two papers, and I will just need to trim off those sides to make sure they're even. And then I'm going to add the sentiment Thinking of You. Again, this is from my stash, and this is a Heffy Doodle die. I really like these sentiments with the shadow dies. They're very well priced, and I think you can get a lot of use out of them. So I'm just going to go ahead and adhere this down with some liquid adhesive. You could definitely pop this up for some dimension, and that will be it for this card. Nice, clean, and simple card. For the last two cards, I'm kind of going to a tried and true design that I love. So I'm using a stitched heart die here, and I have created a number of these. If you're new to my channel, I love to do multiple card videos with paper pads. And when I have little tiny bits of pattern paper left, I love to use my little stitched heart die and create cards like this. I just think they're so simple, yet they're so pretty with all of those patterns being featured. So this is the first time I'm trying this on a mini slimline. So you can see ahead of time I did an A2 size card, which is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. And I stamped the Thinking of You sentiment right onto my card panel there with the Catherine Pooler Juniper Mist ink. And for the slimline card, I'm going to use one of the stickers from my sampler kit, and I stamped the same sentiment onto that little banner sticker, and I'm going to place that to the bottom right. So that finishes off cards number 13 and 14. So I'm going to slow this down and show you all 14 cards again. I really enjoyed working with this kit. I decided to subscribe for 6 months because I wanted to try something new, and it's for card making and scrapbooking, so I thought it might kind of really spur my creativity, and maybe I would get things that I wouldn't normally purchase and just have fun trying to see what I can come up with. So for a $15 kit, I feel like I got my money's worth with the 14 cards. I'm really happy with how all of these turned out. I hope you enjoyed seeing what I created with this kit. Once I show you the rest of the cards here, then I'll show you what I have left over. I'm thinking what I might do is kind of keep all 6 months leftovers and then seeing if I can make anything more with what I have left over from the kits. So of course I have the stamp set. I have one tiny sliver of pattern paper left, one of the coloring cut aparts, and then some of the ephemera left over. I felt like these were more for scrapbooking, but you never know, I might be able to find a way to use them. I have a couple of the little ephemera left. I didn't use any of the banner stickers, and then I still have the acrylic smile word left. So that's it for today. Thanks everyone for joining me. If you've enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the like button and make sure to subscribe if you haven't so you don't miss any upcoming videos. Have a fantastic day, everyone. I'll see you soon. Bye.